Okay, so we're going to take another look at a bit of Regulus today, just to give us a bit of a recap on where we are. Remember that Regulus, our legacy hunter, has gone to visit Verania, who's very, very ill, and he's told her that she's having a treacherous time, but that she'll get through it. He says, habes climactericum tempus sed evades. Obviously, he's hoping that this is going to give him a little bit of leeway with her. He's brought her some good news. She'll feel better about it. And with any luck, she'll give him a little gift in her will so that when the inevitable happens and she dies, he's a little bit better off for it. Okay, so that's where we are in the story. Let's pick up, obviously, from the top. And Pliny tells us, illa, ut in periculo credula, poscit testamentum, legatum regulo scribit. Okay, so we start off with illa. Illa is obviously feminine, so that refers to Verania. So that woman, she, is probably enough in this instance. I'm going to skip over ut in periculo credula for just a moment and just jump us straight to our verbs. So she, ut in periculo credula, she poscit testamentum. She demands her will. So it seems like Regulus has got what he wanted. She's going to make a change to her will. It's worth noting at this point that poscit is present tense, as are many of the verbs in this section. And I think we've probably mentioned this before, but if we haven't, it's what's known as a vivid present. It draws your reader in. We're describing the events as if they're happening now, so we can all visualize them. So she demands her will. Testamentum, obviously, is where you get the English word testament from. You may have heard people refer to them as the last will and testament of so-and-so. So there we go. She demands her will. Legatum regulo scribit. And she writes, again, scribit is in the present tense, so rather than scripsit, she writes a legatum, a legacy or a bequest, so just a gift in her will, a legacy, regulo in the dative to regulus. So that's relatively straightforward. The tricky bit is this ut in periculo credula. Oops, sorry about that. Let's fix that, there we go. Ut in periculo credula. Ut you'll have seen lots of times as an introduction to either a purpose clause or a result clause, or an indirect command using the subjunctive. We haven't got that here. In fact, we haven't got a verb at all. All we've got is this credula, which gives us the English word credulous or believing. Yeah, quick to believe is really what it means. So I'm going to stick with credulous, and we can all learn a new word. But the ut gives it just the feeling of a little bit of an aside. So literally it says something like she, as in danger, credulous. So you need to just extrapolate a little bit from that. What does that really mean? So you could interpret it in a number of different ways. You might want to say something like, as one might expect in danger. She, as one might expect in danger, was quick to believe, was credulous. Okay, it gives it the feeling of a sort of general statement about the way that people behave, this ut. So she, as people are in danger, was quick to believe. You don't even really need the was when you run it back into the rest of the sentence. So you end up with something like she, as people are in danger, or she, as one might expect, in danger. Quick to believe, demands her will. So something along those lines will do the trick. But that ut is not giving you a result clause. It's not giving you a purpose clause or anything like that. It's just a sort of as or since. Okay. So let's carry on from there. So she, as one might expect in danger, quick to believe, demands her will and writes, again, no and here actually, that's worthwhile noting as well. It's completely blank. She demands her will, she writes a legacy to Regulus. I'm sure we have mentioned this before. This is a process known as asyndeton. You just drop the conjunction out and it just gives the whole sentence a bit more pace. Anyway, so there we go. So he's got what he wants. She's written him a legacy in her will. And Pliny goes on to say, mox ingrauescit clamat moriens hominem scelestum perfidumque ac plus etiam quam periurum esse. I'm going to pause there for a minute because I think that's quite a lot to do in one go. So let's go back to the mox. Mox ingravescit. Soon, mox, I'm sure is a word you've come across. Ingravescit. Gravis means serious or heavy, as I'm sure you know. So ingravescit is a verb which is made from that, as a compound of that. So it begins to get worse, to become more serious. So in the context of Verania and her illness, soon she got worse. Or actually, again, we're looking at the present tense of this. So soon she gets worse, literally. Soon she gets worse. Clamat, she shouts. Moriens, dying. The participle moriens refers to Verania there. There's no separate feminine form, so you can't tell, but the context just says to us it must be her, mustn't it? So she shouts, dying, and she's the subject of the sentence. That clamat, then, is going to lead us into an accusative and infinitive. We've got a variety of accusatives here in the form of hominem, scelestum, perfidum, and then periurum esse at the end as well. Okay, periurum esse. So where are we going to start with this? Well, I'm inclined actually to say that I'm going to leave hominem. I'm going to take him implied as the subject of the indirect sentence. So she shouts, dying, that he, esse, him to be, hominem scelestum, a wicked man, perfidumque, and treacherous. And then, finally, ac plus etiam quam periurum, and more even than an oath breaker, than a man who's swore an oath, who's sworn a false oath. So she shouts, dying, that he's a wicked man and treacherous, and even more than an oath breaker. Well, potentially even more than a liar would be a fine way of doing that. The structure here is known as a tricolon. You've got three adjectives in quick succession. Scelestum, he's wicked. Perfidum, and then periurum, an oathbreaker, a liar. Okay, and it's also got, I'm sure you can feel a bit of a crescendo to it. The intensity builds up. Scelestum and perfidum, they're not great. They're very negative things. But then the climax of it comes with this plus etiam quam periurum esse, and even more than an oathbreaker. Okay, so she shouts, dying, that he's a wicked man and treacherous, and even more than a liar. And then you get this description of him afterwards, that he is this qui sibi per salutem filii peiravisset. Okay, so he who, okay, and then peiravisset, he who had sworn, a false oath. So the verb periero has that specific meaning to it. He who had sworn a false oath. It's in the subjunctive, for reasons that we don't really need to go into, but it's in a subordinate clause in an accusative infinitive, so that creates a subjunctive, but I'm sure you'll all have spotted that isset on the end of it. He who had sworn a false oath, sibi, to her, and then he had done it. The per in the middle is a description of the way in which he'd done it. Per salutem filii, through the health of his son. Per, usually through, but perhaps in English more sensible to say, by or on. You swear oaths on or by things in English, don't you? So he who had sworn a false oath to her on the health of his son. So clearly, he's backed up all of these things that he said to her with this additional oath. I tell you, you're in a bad place, but you'll get through it. I swear it to you. On my son's life is the sort of way in which you might phrase it in English. Now, this is important because although people do say things like that nowadays, swear it on your mother's grave or whatever it is that they people might say. This is taken extremely seriously in the ancient world. When you swear an oath in the ancient world, it's sworn before the gods, and people believed this. That it was something that was punishable by the gods. If you swore an oath, then it was something. It was a sacred thing, which was something to be taken seriously. I'm sure many people take oaths and promises very seriously nowadays, but it had particular resonance in the ancient world. But here, Regulus just goes around and just randomly is happy to swear oaths on his son's life, with knowing full well that these things are not true. So we get a little bit of commentary now from Pliny on that, and the impact that could have. So he says, "Facit hoc Regulus non minus scelerate quam frequenter." So facit hoc, he does this. Again, we're still in the present tense, and that makes it's less about being vivid now, because we're talking about the repeated action which Regulus does. So we're using a simple present tense for this. He does this, and then Regulus is the subject. Regulus. So Regulus does this. The shift of the verb to the beginning is interesting. It just puts a little bit more emphasis on the fact of the action. It just brings that to the fore. So he does this, does Regulus. So Regulus does this is fine in English. Regulus does this. Non minus scelerate. Non minus, sort of no less scelerate. Let's move the mouse out of the way, that'd be useful. No less scelerate, wickedly, quam frequenter, than frequently. I.e., this is a wicked action which he does all the time. But the focus here really is on the wickedness because of the explanation that Pliny's about to give us. So he does this no less wickedly than he does frequently. It's very wicked and he does it all the time. He does it no less wickedly than frequently. Quod eram deorum. Quod you'll know as because eram deorum, the anger of the gods. Eram obviously is accusative, so just bear that in mind as we go through. Because the anger of the gods, and then a description of the gods, quos ipse quotidie fallit. Gods, quos, whom, ipse, he himself, and then fallit is a verb to deceive or to trick. So whom he himself tricks, deceives, quotidie, every day. Great word. You might have seen the French bakery chain, pain quotidien. So it's a word which is still used in French, and it just means every day. So because the anger of the gods, whom he himself deceives every day, you really need a verb by this point. So we're going to look straight to the end. In caput in felicis pueri, and then the verb is sat here at the end, de testatur. Okay, so he calls down. Literally as a witness, actually, that has it, but you probably don't need that in this instance, because he calls down the anger of the gods, whom he himself deceives every day. He calls down the anger in caput in felicis pueri. In caput, onto the head. He calls down the anger onto the head, pueri, of the boy, i.e. his son, and the boy is described as in felicis, unlucky, wretched, unhappy. Any of those would do the trick there. So if we just run that again back from the facit. So facit hoc Regulus. Regulus does this, non minus scelerate, no less wickedly, quam frequenter, than frequently. Quod, because eram deorum, the anger of the gods, quos ipse quotidie fallit, whom he himself deceives every day, in caput in felicis pueri de testator, he calls down onto the head of his unlucky boy. The idea here is obviously that Regulus has no regard for the gods or for his son, and he's just in it for the money, isn't he? Whatever he can get out of it. So I hope that's helpful. As usual, try and write up your own translation for it. Any questions, let me know, and I'll see you next time.